What's good? It's your boy Fanon. Welcome back to the channel. Subscribers, to those who've not subscribed, shout out to you. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you take an opportunity to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you can be notified of the next time we drop videos. Also, attend the live streams that we do pretty much every day. This weekend, probably not going to do one. But hey, man, thank you for showing up, and thank you to everybody that supports the channel on Venmo and on the super chats and the live stream. It really, really helps. We're on our way to moving to Texas, so looking for new organizations to work with. So your donations really do help. Will definitely help in that regard. So thank you. Now I'm going to get into what I want to talk about now, which is these bouts that are taking place today. The heavyweights, though. Of course, probably for me, the biggest fight that's happening today is not a heavyweight fight. That's Robert Easter Jr. versus Mikey Garcia to unify the IBF and the WBC lightweight title. But we have two non-title fights in the heavyweight division. At least not. There might be some minor belt on the line somewhere, but none of the major belts are on the line. Just three of the higher ranked or more respected heavyweights in the world. That being Luis Ortiz, who's fighting Cujanu on the undercard of Robert Easter and Mikey Garcia, and the other fight being Dillian White versus Joseph Parker over in the UK. And there's some things that we've been talking about the heavyweight division for a while now. Pretty much all year, it's been the biggest story in boxing, the most consistently spoken about and most heated discussion in the boxing community has been Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder and whether that bout was going to happen. And it didn't happen this year. I'm not sure that it's going to happen next year either, now that Anthony Joshua signed a 3-year deal with a 3-year deal, not 3-fight deal, but a 3-year deal with Sky Sports. If that affects the U.S., if that means that you have to show Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder on DAZN, then I don't know if that bout's going to happen. But anyway, that bout aside, there's been a lot of talk going back and forth about the heavyweight division, and specifically three of these guys. There's three of the guys that are fighting today. Them along with probably Big Baby Miller, Tyson Fury, and I think Huey Fury, because I think Huey Fury's I like how Huey Fury looks as a fighter, are that second tier of heavyweights. And Luis Ortiz said some things in the lead up to this fight about Anthony Joshua that I agree with 100%. And I think any fair-minded boxing, not any fair-minded boxing fan, but people have been watching this closely enough, because there's a lot of fair-minded people that might disagree. Man, I'm telling you, Luis Ortiz blasts him, and he blasts him and says that he knows that being Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua, the Luis Ortiz would knock out Anthony Joshua inside of 8 rounds. Let me go specifically what they say, and then we'll talk about it, and also talk about this set of fights that are going on in the UK in the heavyweight division, and the fights that are happening in the United States, and what I think is a trend, definitely with Matchroom Boxing, where I think the two best heavyweights in the world are being avoided by Matchroom Boxing fighters, and specifically the two best heavyweights in the world, in my opinion, in the opinion of a lot of people, are Deontay Wilder and Luis Ortiz. Deontay Wilder and Luis Ortiz. And Deontay Wilder being avoided by Anthony Joshua is well documented. And anybody that doesn't believe that, that fight was not held because of the Matchroom side, anybody that doesn't understand that at this point in time is either they're just, in the words of Eddie Hearn, they're being delusional. They're deluded. Other people might say, well, it's really not Anthony Joshua, it's on Eddie Hearn, or it's not on Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn, it's on Rod McCracken. But whatever the case is, that fight's not happening. It's not happening because of Matchroom Boxing. The fight that didn't happen before that, and I do believe this was the case earlier another fight that didn't happen was Luis Ortiz and Anthony Joshua. When Luis Ortiz was the mandatory for Anthony Joshua. The first person that Anthony Joshua avoided through Matchroom, whether it was Rod McCracken, or whether it was Anthony Joshua, was Luis Ortiz. And because Luis Ortiz was the mandatory for Anthony Joshua. And Eddie Hearn said 1 week after Anthony Joshua won the belt against Vladimir Klitschko, that maybe they would vacate the belt if they had to fight Luis Ortiz, because Luis Ortiz had he had underperformed when Matchroom had him for a couple fights, and he knew that. That's quoting Eddie Hearn, right? And said, well, it's not that he can't that he's not a good fighter, he just doesn't bring enough money to the table, right? The old refrain that there's not enough money in it for the risk. Right? Whatever the case is, if you don't take the risk, you didn't take the risk, which means you're ducking. You could have a reason for ducking, but you still ducked. To say, oh, well, he didn't fight Luis Ortiz because Luis Ortiz doesn't bring any money to the table. He didn't fight him. And if he didn't fight him because he didn't think he could win, or he didn't fight him because he didn't think that he was going to make enough money for it, either way it goes, he didn't take the fight. But I agree with I think that there's a lot of legitimacy to what Luis Ortiz has to say. And what he says is, the Cuban heavyweight contenders laugh, express all he needed to say about possibly getting a shot at Joshua, the British superstar who owns the IBF, IBO, WBA, and WBO titles. He doesn't think so, said Ortiz's trainer, who told Boxing Scene following the press conference Thursday. I think he thinks they're all chickens. Hearn won't do it. Joshua wants no part of it. Hearn knows he'll dismantle Joshua in 8 rounds and knock him out. He would. Why would Hearn do that? And then he goes on to say, quoting, in the translation for Luis Ortiz, that Joshua can talk all the crap he wants, but it's never going to happen unless, like Ortiz has said in the past, unless Ortiz gets on Medicare and he has a walking stick, then maybe he'll fight him. And I believe that's 100% correct. And the worst thing about it is that the fans of Anthony Joshua think that's fine. And the way that they'll react to that is just by tearing down Luis Ortiz. Talk about how old he is, make up stories about how, if you go through my comment section, you'll see some of the craziest statements about Luis Ortiz when it's brought up. Pretty much as soon as somebody says something about Anthony Joshua, whoever it is that says it was either lying or their reputation is terrible, or they don't know what they're talking about. Right? Or the fan just changes the subject to something else. Well, why didn't Wilder do this? Like, hold on, man, that's not the subject. But anyway, Luis Ortiz, as far as Luis Ortiz goes and Deontay Wilder goes, Luis Ortiz wasn't just ducked by Anthony Joshua. Luis Ortiz was ducked by the guy who's also fighting today, Dillian White from Matchroom. Dillian White had all that talking about wanting to fight Deontay Wilder. Did a lot of talking, a lot of positioning by, fighting incredibly difficult fights like Malcolm Tan and Hellenius. Those killers that he fought. Malcolm Tan and Hellenius, to get into position to be the WBA #1 ranked contender. And Deontay Wilder tells him, fight Luis Ortiz and then I'll fight you in a voluntary. No problem. Then the WBA orders it and says, look, yeah, you can be the second, you'll be the second mandatory if you fight Luis Ortiz. And then they go and fight, we'll go fight Pulev. and then when he loses the Pulev purse bid, instead of fighting the mandatory for the IBF, he jumps over here and fights this one with Joseph Parker. So the heavyweight division should be the best division in boxing. There's a lot of good talent in there. A lot of good talent in heavyweight division. And what you think about individual people, is what you think. What I think about is what I think. But these guys are good fighters. Anthony Joshua was a very, very good fighter. You don't get to be an Olympic gold medal and even get your hands on Tyson Fury's belts without being a good fighter. He's clearly a good fighter. He's clearly a talented athlete. Luis Ortiz is clearly a very, very good boxer. Southpaw, only has one loss, and the one loss he had came to Deontay Wilder fighting for the WBC championship. 38 other people have gotten knocked out fighting Deontay Wilder. So it is what it is with that. There's no shame in getting your block knocked off by Deontay Wilder. He's still a very, very good fighter. Joseph Parker's a good fighter. Dillian White's a good fighter. All these guys, if there was a situation where they could fight one another without all of the, who has the most Twitter followers and who has the most Instagram followers, and one guy saying he's not ready, and the fight can be made if you sign with this promotional company or that promotional company. If it wasn't for all of that and all these guys could actually fight with each other and we could see who the best would be, I wouldn't have an issue with any one of these guys. I would love to watch every one of the fights. But that's not what we have. Right now, we have a prima donna heavyweight in a, like Luis Ortiz said, that he's going to be hiding behind Luis Ortiz said, hiding behind his promoter. Hiding behind his puppet master promoter. That's what Anthony Joshua is. He's a very talented fighter. He's an accomplished fighter who ducked Anthony Joshua, ducked Luis Ortiz. He ducked two of the fighters that people think have a chance. Pretty much every fighter that anybody that's active right now that people think have a chance to beat him, he's already ducked. And Luis Ortiz is never going to happen. And that, I do believe, is for the same reason that Deontay Wilder's not happening. But why they're fighting Alexander Povetkin. Alexander Povetkin lost to Vladimir Klitschko years ago. Been pop dirty for performance-enhancing drugs on two different occasions where he got sanctioned for it. One where he got off the hook, but it's acknowledged that he was taking the performance-enhancing drug. It was just whether or not it was on the ban list at the time he had taken it. So, it is what it is. I can't speak to whether Luis Ortiz would beat Anthony Joshua and knock him out in 8 rounds or not. But just like Luis Ortiz said, he says, hey, man, I'd beat him up, stop him inside 8 rounds. Just hit him with a bunch of straight rights, straight lefts and right hooks and take him out. I don't doubt that could happen with Luis Ortiz and Anthony Joshua, because it dang sure almost happened with Anthony Joshua and Dillian White. And Dillian White will get the brakes beaten off him by Luis Ortiz. But the hope for Luis Ortiz is that he'll hurry up and turn 45. When he turns 45 and these guys see that he's looking like he's slowed down and their confidence is up, then maybe they might fight him. But until then, it's just duck season over there, man. It's a little three-way boxing circle going on with Eddie Hearn and promotional companies that he feels comfortable dealing with fighters that he doesn't see major risks in, and the winner of a Dillian White versus Joseph Parker doesn't matter anyway, because they might try to just set up a rematch with the winner of either way it goes is a rematch for Anthony Joshua. Instead of fighting the guys that people think he could be beat by. But anyway, I'll enjoy the fights. I don't have any predictions for this fight other than Luis Ortiz win. Well, my predictions are Luis Ortiz wins, and Dillian White wins by robbery. I have a suspicion that I'll be looking at the fight after it's over and saying, man, how in the world did they score that for Dillian White? But that's my feeling. Hopefully I'm wrong. And with that, I'm out. Peace.